Hey everybody, welcome back to But Why Love the Podcast, and today we're selling propane and propane accessories. We're talking about King of the Hill. As always, I am Kate, and I'm here with Adrian.
Hey, how's it going?
And Matt.
Hello.
And Alex.
I'm here, and I've never been to Texas, so I'm excited.
Alex, why don't you introduce yourself, introduce where you are on the webs, and why we asked you to come talk with us about King of the Hill.
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I formerly did What We Talk About When We Talk About the podcast, which was another pop culture podcast, and I do a video game one called Game Boys, and I work on Friday for horror stuff, and so just kind of like all over the internet with media, and I'm here because I'm here a lot, and because I watch a lot of TV, and also because I'm not from Texas, I've never been to Texas. I am born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, so every like ounce of my opinion on this show is probably, I would say, roughly as informed as like Matt and Kate and Adrian talking about like Portlandia and how accurate that is.
I was just about to bring that up.
Which here's what I'm going to say about Portlandia: more of a documentary than I want it to be. Like, it's exaggerated, but not to the degree that you would want. That sketch where they're like at a restaurant and someone's asking like, well, what was the chicken's name and all this stuff. Haven't heard that. Have overheard people asking about what farm the chickens were raised on and like what the conditions were like there.
See, this is why I had to quit watching Portlandia. I couldn't do it anymore.
So I will say though, Alex, how you described Portlandia is in fact how I describe King of the Hill to people.
It's exaggerated, but not as much as you would think. I like it.
More
Okay.
of a documentary than anything.
Yeah, agreed.
Love it.
But I'm not leading this episode. Adrian is.
Yep, I tell you what, I'm gonna do this episode. We don't really have like any like major reason why we're doing this episode. If anything, we should have did it last year, so it like rounded out like it's 10-year anniversary of when it ended. I'm just in the midst of a rewatch, and I just like really love King of the Hill, and I'm realizing that it's probably one of my favorite adult animations that's out or that's come out in the last few years. So that kind of relates to my intro question. Where does King of the Hill rank in your adult animation pantheon? And I say this because usually, Simpsons, American Dad, Futurama, South Park, those are ones that usually people always talk about, but I don't hear nearly as much talk about King of the Hill, and I just don't know if because it's like the animation or wherever the case is, but just curious where it falls for you. We'll start with Alex since he's the non-Texan.
Yeah, so for me, King of the Hill ranks high, but also adjacent, because the humor and the storytelling styles that they play in, I feel like aren't really what other adult animation is trying to do. Like, it's like all of them are commenting on society, doing like a satire or whatever, but the approach King of the Hill takes to me feels different in that it does make an effort to be more grounded, I think, than a lot of those shows. Where like it's a little bit exaggerated, but like a lot of it is things like, oh, there's like a Walmart equivalent opening up in town, how do we feel about it? Like something that like I don't fully like. Family Guy sort of did something like that. I think South Park did a Walmart episode, but it like turned into a Matrix episode, and it was just like completely insane. And so for me, King of the Hill like ranks pretty high. Like, it's a smart show, it has good jokes, but also I'm not from Texas, so I feel like I can't fully like say if it's like at the top. For me, I think classic Simpsons is at the top of mine, but then like New Simpsons is also near the bottom of mine.
Can you actually classify something like that if it's still going on?
I don't know. I just know that Simpsons got very not good at a certain point. But yeah, I think King of the Hill is like, it ranks pretty high up there. I think I would say I enjoy it more than Family Guy, particularly New Family Guy. I just didn't really like that show as much when it came back. Like, I'm very much like a first 3 seasons classic Family Guy. And even that I haven't gone back to watch. There's probably some stuff in there that has not aged well. But yeah, King of the Hill is pretty high ranking for me.
What about you, Kate?
King of the Hill is a slice of life anime. That's what it is.
I love that description.
Because for me, it's probably my second. My favorite is Futurama, and then I would put King of the Hill right after it, and mainly because like we watch King of the Hill like every day when it would come on. And I don't remember if it was when it was still doing new shows. I mean, it ran for a really long time, so it may have been. But then, like, we never changed the channel when it was also on. And we had, like, we knew people that we would equate to other people on King of the Hill. And so, like, for me, like, it is just, I had never really thought about it until you kind of contextualized it like that, Alex, like when in the world of like adult animation, like it is really grounded, because even though Family Guy is kind of grounded, it still goes way off the walls and Stewie
Still has
time
chicken
travels
fights.
and like all that happens. And like King of the Hill is just, this is the absurdity of living in Texas, and it just hits different. I personally don't smoke cigarettes, one, because they're bad, but two, because I watched Bobby Hill smoke like 3 cartons in one day. And it was like, it just felt real, and like you could know people who did that stuff or knew stuff like that. So yeah, it just works.
And Matt.
So King of the Hill is weird for me because sadly, I guess if I think of like the animations I've watched, I probably put it a lot. It's up there, but it's also probably a lot lower. But also, I kind of have like kind of the same phase of like with the Alex's problem of depending on the show where it goes. But King of the Hill is also just weird because I actually watched the first like few seasons, like the first I think season or so, like live when it came on TV, and then they actually went through the whole like whether it's gonna be canceled and cliffhanger stuff, and then I quit watching it forever, didn't care for it, and then as I got back as an adult later, especially when I got introduced to Adult Swim stuff, like watched it a lot more. But like if I think of like top adult animations that I watch, I mean I put it above South Park, but like in The Simpsons, but I personally like Family Guy, but also I'm like in the Alex boat of like I like old Family Guy, but I like it from like season like probably like up to 10 or so. But then probably anything after 10 I don't care about.
It's gone on for
And
so long. As soon
that's
as you
what,
said
that's
I
what I'm
like
saying.
early
Like I
Family
actually
Guy
like
up
a
to
lot
season
of.
10.
I think it's like on season 19. That's the weird thing with Family Guy. It's like on season like 18 or 19. I've seen like 15
That's
seasons, but I feel like
crazy.
haven't seen anything. But that one's gone downhill. But I don't think it compared to like the first like 5 or 6 seasons with Family Guy.
Yeah, so I think that's for me. That's why it ranks so highly for me because, and we'll talk about this like a little bit later because we're already bringing up on why it's a different kind of adult animation. It's just good all 13 seasons. Like its dip in ratings it's not really its fault. It's basically football's fault.
It is football's fault. I know
And
that
And
much.
Fox, right?
Seth MacFarlane's fault as well. But I think consistency, like I don't think there's like, oh, the first 3 seasons of Family Guy are the best seasons. Like no, like even up to season like 12, like there's still really good stuff going on. So as much as I love, I think I'd have to go with Kate. Like Futurama's good throughout, and then like King of the Hill's good throughout. But again, like Alex said at the beginning, they're just different kinds of animations.
Yeah, because I mean that's my problem is like I can sit, and especially for some of these shows, I've seen a lot of King of the Hill. I have not seen as much King of the Hill as I've seen in a lot of other adult animations, and so it's also a lot harder to classify, like put it up there when I'm like, well, I haven't even watched all of them.
So I think for me, like King of the Hill is something I forget about until I remember it, and then I remember like every episode,
Yeah.
like all at one time, and I can like tie memories to them. And the fact that my dad, every time we go to like anytime we would go to buy barbecue supplies, would say propane and propane accessories.
I mean that's
Like that just sticks. I don't know, it's kind of like a Seinfeld to me, in like that really banal, doesn't do much but hits when it hits way, which is why it's at the top.
Yeah, so we'll kind of get into it, and we're definitely going to talk about those things and about why those, because they're really kind of like they're really big, but why those compared to some other adult animations. But we're going to go run through some production history. Production history for this is going to be just a little bit longer, just because I mean everybody knows about Seth MacFarlane, everyone knows about how The Simpsons has been running forever and things like that. But I feel like King of the Hill's left out a little bit, so we're going to go a little bit deeper in the production history and then get into those, but why those after. But King of the Hill is an American animated sitcom created by Mike Judge and Greg Daniels for Fox and ran from January of 1997 to May of 2010, which is a pretty long time when it comes to animations, especially in the early 2000s into the late 2000s. And if Mike Judge and Greg Daniels sound familiar, Mike Judge is the creator of Beavis and Butthead, the co-creator of Silicon Valley, director of Office Space, Idiocracy, and was a writer on The Simpsons. Greg Daniels, writer on SNL, Simpsons, the developer and showrunner of The Office, and then co-creator of Parks and Rec and Space Force more recently on Netflix. So these two come together and give us this show, which once you kind of like think about the show itself, it kind of makes a lot of sense that these two
Mhm.
came together for this because it both fits their brand pretty well, given those shows and movies. It centers on the Hills, a middle class American family in the fictional city of Arlen, Texas. Patriarch and main character Hank Hill, who works as assistant manager at Strickland Propane, is the everyman and general protagonist of the series. Hank is friends with other residents on his block, especially Bill Jotreve, Dale Gribble, and Jeff Boomhauer, all of whom he has known since elementary school. The show attempts to maintain a realistic approach, seeking humor in conventional and mundane aspects of everyday life. In early 1995, after a successful run of Beavis and Butthead on MTV, Mike Judge decided to create another animated series. This one set in small town Texas, based on an amalgamation of Dallas suburbs, including Garland, Texas, where he had lived, and Richardson. Judge conceived the idea for the show and drew the main characters and wrote the pilot script. However, Fox was pretty much uncertain about the viability of Judge's concept for an animated comedy based in reality and also set in the American South. So the network teamed him up with animator Greg Daniels since he'd already had experience with primetime TV writing. Daniels rewrote the script and created important characters who didn't appear in Judge's first draft, including Luann, Cotton, and also did
Sorry, I just thought about Cotton.
Cotton is an
Yeah.
icon.
Cotton reminds me of my uncle.
exactly, and
Who also served in Vietnam and is really short and has like problems.
yeah, Cotton
Okay,
reminds me
I'm
of
sorry.
my great grandma who fought in the North Korean War, and she's a lot like Cotton. Daniel also reworked some of the supporting characters who had originally just been like generic snaggletooth hillbillies, such as Dale Gribble, a conspiracy theorist, which I think is
And an
hilarious
icon.
that like Dale got
Yes.
reworked into being a conspiracy theorist, so he was like more hillbilly than he already is, which I think is fantastic.
So, to be fair, though, I will say Dale represents a very specific subsection of the Texas hillbilly.
Yes, yeah.
If we're,
Well,
if we're honest.
I have a whole thing about how Dale
Okay.
is one of the most underrated characters in the entire show because he has some episodes where I'm just like, man, we thought that was going a completely different direction. Definitely have some
Yeah.
stuff on him. But I think one of the coolest things about this pilot, so Fox is basically saying, "Oh, Judge, I don't know if you can do this. Let's bring in Greg Daniels." So they do the thing, and usually when you present a script, you get like some basic animation in there. But Judge and Daniels basically just use an animated pencil sketch with Hank as part of their pitch to the executive networks. Like it's literally just Hank talking to the network executives about like what the show would be about, introducing the characters, and it's like ridiculously good. And we'll include it in the show notes. It's like 2 minutes of just this basic pencil animated thing. But once you watch it, you're like, oh yeah, that's King of
Yeah.
the Hill. And
I
that
mean, and it's
it
literally
works.
just like Hank introducing everybody, right? Like that's
Yeah.
like the thrust of it. Like there's some jokes mixed in there, but it's just like, I'm Hank, this is my wife, this is my son, like here we go.
Yeah, he's like even at the end of it, he's just like, and there's really lots of advertising opportunities for propane
Oh yeah.
and jerky, and it's just great. It's like he's an actual
It's
character,
good.
It
which
sums up the show so beautifully,
Mhm.
too. Like, it perfectly captures it.
perfectly captures kind of the things that they go into, because when you think about like Greg Daniels and Mike Judge, they're kind of different in the way that they operate. So Judge's writing tend to emphasize political humor, specifically the clash of Hank Hill's like social conservatism. But Daniels really focused more on character development to provide emotional context for the series through like numeral cultural conflicts. Judge was ultimately so pleased with Daniel's contributions to the script, he chose to credit him as a co-creator rather than just giving him the developer credit that's usually reserved for people who are brought in to rework the pilot, which I think is really, really great. After its debut, the series became a large success on Fox and was named one of the best television series of the year by various publications, including Entertainment Weekly, Time, and TV Guide. For the 1997 to 1998 season, the series became one of Fox's highest rated programs and even briefly outperformed The Simpsons in ratings. During the fifth and sixth season, Mike Judge and Greg Daniels became less involved with the show since they were eventually going on to focus on other things. Um, but would eventually come back to kind of have a larger sense. But I think the fact that it was able to do so well, and that second season is one of like the highest rated of the series, would go on to outperform Simpsons for a small time, is pretty big considering the
That's huge.
90s is ruled by the Simpsons.
I would say, especially like late 90s, where it's like the Simpsons are cresting at that point.
Yeah, so it succeeds even though Fox itself, like as an entity, insisted that the series basically lack and kind of don't not have really any character development or story arcs, because obviously when you're showing things in syndication, you don't want people to like to age or to grow. You want to just have it as standalone episodes. However, Judge and Daniel still managed to develop like minor arcs and story elements throughout the series, especially in those early seasons. Especially like thinking about like Luann becoming more independent and educated, the aging of characters, Bobby and Connie, kind of growing up throughout the years, which isn't
Joseph's
very common.
mustache.
Joseph's mustache and
Yes.
his puberty, which is
See,
really.
that's what I'm saying. Like, you just mentioned something, and I see it in my head, and it makes
It's such a bad like dirt mustache. But
It's
also
great,
like
it's great.
super accurate to like any teenage boy who's like, I have facial hair.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, and that just that aging of characters just doesn't happen in animated series. Like Stewie's been a baby for 19 seasons, The Simpsons going on a millennia, and they're all still
Didn't South Park
relatively
do like
the
a
same, so.
season long event when they went to fourth grade?
Yeah, basically, but they've been
Like,
just
they,
kind
like-
of stuck in fourth grade since.
Yeah,
then.
and they
Well, I
they
thought
did
they
it
actually
once.
upgraded them. Well, I thought they upgraded them to fourth grade, but they never did anything else after that.
Yeah,
Oh no,
so
that's
they
what I'm
went from
saying is
third-
they did it one time in
Oh,
like
okay,
what,
but I thought
20
you said, like,
years.
Yeah, so they relatively stay in those things because of that, but because of Judges and Daniels' kind of writing styles, I think making them grow is super important, especially with Luann. Luann goes from just being like the ditzy blonde to the slightly less ditzy blonde who's more independent and things like that. But after kind of like later on, because it was scheduled to lead off Fox Sunday night animation programming lineup, portions of King of the Hill episodes were often preempted by sporting events that ran into overtime. In season 9, especially, whole episodes were like cut out, basically. Ultimately, enough of the episodes, even into the 10th season, still had that issue. And that was intended to be the final season, and it consisted of basically unaired 9th season episodes, which obviously didn't help the ratings. So you do see a bit of a drop in the ratings basically between season 9 through like 11-ish. But kind of back towards like the 12th season, it goes back up in the Nielsen ratings, which is great. However, Fox announced in 2008 that King of the Hill had been canceled, and the cancellation coincided with the announcement of Seth MacFarlane's, who is obviously the creator of Family Guy and American Dad, who would be creating a spinoff of Family Guy called The Cleveland Show, which would eventually take over King of the Hill's time slot. And even with that cancellation, unfortunately, ABC didn't end up picking up the show despite Judge having one of his shows there already, because they basically had no interest in picking up an animated show. So the show's 14th season was supposed to air sometime in 2009 to 2010, but Fox later announced that it would just not air those episodes and instead opted for syndication during that year, which is why the show basically ends in 2008. On
Makes sense.
August 8th of 2017, it was revealed that Judge and Daniels had talks with Fox executives about a potential revival. In March of 2018, in an interview with Rotten Tomatoes, Judge said that he would want to see the series revived to include age characters such as like an older Bobby. And then March of 2020, Daniels said that he and Judge had an idea for a reboot. Daniels stated, "We had a plan for it, and it's pretty funny. So maybe one day they'll get that going."
I like it. It might be too on the nose, but I wouldn't necessarily be against doing an aged up Bobby who has gone to an out of state liberal college.
That'd be great. I'd love
Like
it.
just that, and then his interactions with Hank from there, I feel like I would love.
Yeah. I
So would
think
you rather
there's-
him go to like an out of state liberal college, or rather him go?
Would
to, like,
rather
one of
him
the-
go to UT.
or like a community college.
Oh,
Like, I'm
okay,
thinking
yeah.
I'm thinking like a Texas community college, like one of them, like mid.
That could also be
colleges
very
around.
good.
I don't think that he would get pushed enough to have him have that conflict with Hank, though, at just like a regular.
No, I don't think he
community
would, but
college.
it would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Like just
but
to see
also look-
Bobby. Yeah.
also,
deviate.
Peggy would not let him go to a community college. You know that.
Well, that's why he's going to go to like SMU, which is not a community college, but it might as well be.
There's
But-
a Texas State joke in there somewhere.
Yeah. Still higher than SMU. But still, as far as looking up, Cleveland Show did have 4 seasons from 2009 to 2013.
Wow.
Which I so like it had 4 seasons, but also like I feel like when you compare that against other adult animation, especially from the same
Mhm.
creator, that's not a lot. And
Oh.
also like that may have just been like pity seasons. Like
I
we
feel
love
like the
Seth
last-
MacFarlane. Here
I-
you go.
I feel like the last 2 were just pity seasons because the first one is kind of not bad, and then I kind of fell off like mid-season 2 because I just didn't care anymore.
I'm just very over Seth MacFarlane personally.
Yeah. I mean,
just don't
especially
care
because
anymore.
there's only so many ways that you can do a family sitcom, but like he has literally locked into one dynamic exclusively, I feel like, of like the exact arrangement of like we have a talking dog, but in this one it's a wacky alien, and in this one like
There are some episodes of American Dad in which I think it was an episode of Family Guy and vice versa.
But they are great because they do make fun of that, though.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
they are great. I think they're both really good shows. But also,
you shouldn't be
Yeah,
able to
I mean,
swap
you're not
scripts
wrong.
like that.
I mean,
I mean,
the
the Cleveland Show had a talking bear. There we go.
Yeah,
That-
and a talking
yeah.
baby. Like it was the same
Yeah.
thing.
Oh no,
You
the
know, a
Cleveland Show
fat
was
older
exactly-
brother. It was like literally the same thing, just with Cleveland as the main thing. And he wasn't even like really like the same character because they do the thing where like Cleveland like changes whatever throughout.
Yeah, Cleveland's whole persona changes. It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. But King of the Hill stays pretty consistent, even in like kind of those down years. They still do stay pretty consistent, and there's still lots of really great nuggets of episodes that we'll talk about. So before we get into our but why those, we do have a quick break to talk about Manscaped and Manscaped accessories. I tell you what.
Valentine's Day is upon y'all. So make sure you're ready for wherever the night may take you. Our friends at Manscaped, the global leaders in men's below-the-waist grooming, are here to tell you that you need to use the best tools for the job so you can be ready for anything on that special day. Now, 2 million men are already trusting Manscaped products to groom, and we want to make sure you become one of them. The best way to get started is with the Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0, full of the best products to keep you looking, smelling, and feeling nice. It features the 3rd generation Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer, which has advanced skin-safe technology and features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. It's also waterproof, which prevents a mess on the bathroom floor and in the sink. Plus, if you're looking to smell fresh, check out the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver. These products keep your boys from sweating, smelling, and sticking. The Perfect Package 3.0 will also come with a pair of Manscaped boxers. That'll keep your junk feeling fresh all day. It's time to upgrade those overused pair of boxers to Manscaped's high-performance anti-chafing ones. They're easily the comfiest boxers I have ever touched. This is the perfect package to help you get the perfect package. So, get 20% off and free shipping with the code BUTWHYTHO at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code BUTWHY Happy Valentine's Day from Manscaped.
So welcome back. So for our but why those, we usually talk about this, and I do kind of like want to preface this by like it's a successful franchise, like, and I think it's a successful franchise despite being kind of like the middle child between The Simpsons
Mhm.
and Family Guy, especially when
Oh,
it
that's
comes
fair.
comes to Fox Animation. So King of the Hill did end up running for 13 seasons, totaling 259 episodes.
Holy shit!
Exactly. And that's over its 13-year run. So this essentially puts it at number 4 for like the longest adult animated shows, behind American Dad at number 3, South Park at number 2, or sorry, number 5, sorry. Because it's American Dad, South Park, Family Guy, and of course, The Simpsons. And all of those are still running. So like
So is American Dad still running? I still have not been able to figure out for the last 3 years. It
It,
keeps jumping networks.
it keeps jumping networks, and Wikipedia says, and like all of like their wikis say that it's still like to the present. So I
That's.
think
I mean,
it's
that's
still
what.
going.
I mean, I can't blame you because that's what I've seen. Because about once
Seth
a year.
MacFarlane shows don't die; they just
yeah.
go into hibernation
I'm
for
telling you,
like
every-
a season, and then they come back.
Because once a year I look up American Dad to see if it's still on. Because after I got up to about because I'm another one of those shows where I watched all the episodes and then they jumped ship and they lost net between jumping from Netflix and then obviously Fox. But they still have episodes, but I never know if they're new.
No, so it's again, Seth MacFarlane shows are kind of like Michael Myers in that they die, but they're always gonna come back, and they're gonna come back worse.
But they never died.
But
Family Guy died like 3 times. What are you talking about?
Technically, it
do
only
wanna-
officially died once. Okay, it died
I
like
do wanna
twice
note one
more in
thing
my
with
heart, but
this.
that's it.
King of the Hill is number 4, but with the exception of Simpsons, and well, I guess Simpsons and South Park, Family Guy and American Dad were either canceled or hopped networks. So King of the Hill, if you look at like single network runs, is like it's third.
yeah, it's killing it.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And even if you take it farther than that, like so if you look at like all of US animations, including cartoons, it's number 14. And then if you look at like all animations across the world, it's number 28
Okay.
with
That's
its
dope.
259 episodes, which is
So I know what I'm gonna be doing for the next month.
that's what I've been going every night. I watch a couple episodes of King of the Hill, and I was like, I tell you what, I get real Texas real quick whenever I watch it. I tell you what. And it just didn't run for a long time either. Reviews of King of the Hill were overwhelmingly positive, despite even the dip in season 9 through 11. So across all 13 seasons, the average Nielsen ratings is 7.9, and it peaked at 16.3 in season 2. IMDb has it, and again, this is also like as we've done before, like take this with a grain of salt because this show was going on before like ratings were a thing, and some of these websites were even a thing in generals.
Mhm.
But IMDb 7.3, TV.com 8.5, Google 86%, and then of course Rotten Tomatoes comes in with its weird number of a 69%, which
So those
I
are
don't know.
all extremely low to me, to be honest.
Yeah. I
Those are
agree.
really low. I don't trust it.
I don't trust it, especially when you consider that it's number 27 on IGN's top 100 animated shows from 2016 and in TV Guide's top 60 from 2013. So
How much do you want to bet that a lot of those Rotten Tomato scores are people not from Texas saying that these are gross caricatures of people
Oh,
in
probably.
Texas?
Absolutely.
How much do you want to bet that?
Some of the guy from like LA is complaining about
yeah.
texture
Yep.
from I got
Yeah.
it.
I feel like reviewing TV shows is also just really tricky because, like, what exactly are you reviewing? Like the seasons that you've seen, the seasons that have released so far.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Family Guy has some 5-star reviews out there
Well-
that, as it went on, the reviewer was like, it's closer to a 4 now.
So the way that Rotten Tomatoes works when it comes to putting in your reviews for your seasons, if you take like, so I have all of my reviews for Chilling Adventures of Sabrina up there. You input them per season or per episode. And then
Okay.
essentially what it does, the tomato score gets calculated per season individually, and then it has a total score from those individual seasons.
Okay.
So you can't just put in a Rotten Tomatoes score that's like overall King of the Hill. You have to choose the episode and or the seasons of the
Interesting.
series that you're
Okay.
actually reviewing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
how
there
that
is something
works.
to that 69% that's like, that might be somebody who's only reviewed like 3 seasons.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, and again, like I don't, and it's kind of weird too, right? Because if you look at like the Nielsen ratings, especially like for those first like 7 seasons, 8.6, 16.3, 7.9, 8.7, 9.5, 7.7, 9.5, and that puts it well within like the top 75 rated shows of each year, with season 3 being number 10 and season 2 being number 15. So widely popular, even if like these newer age scores are a little low. In my opinion, especially that Rotten Tomato scores, but they're always
The
weird.
Rotten
with their
Tomato.
stuff.
Well, the weird thing is Rotten Tomatoes seem to fall one way or the other with TV shows. Either everyone's just like,
Wait,
oh, 100.
so how did you get the Rotten Tomatoes score? Because I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes now, and they actually don't have a tomato meter score. They just have an audience score, which is different. And they only have one review from actual critics
Yeah,
for season 13.
because if you like look up like each of the seasons, they have like a rating there. From what I
Hmm.
saw, like season 1 has its like own rating, and then I assume that's how they get to the 69% because those other later seasons are ranked pretty low on there compared to like those first couple of seasons.
Yeah, so there's only a rating for it looks 1, 2, 3, and the critic score is 100% for season 5 and 100% for season 13 and then 82% for season 1, and those are the only seasons that have anything from critics, and then everything else is audience generated. So this isn't the critics' fault. I will take that back. I will take my comment back. I am
Fair.
curious as to the why the audience score rated it
Yeah,
so
so
low,
like
'cause
yeah,
that's
and
weird.
that's I mean, I don't pay attention to the critic score. I only care what people like me think. I don't care what you think, Kate. No, but yeah, you're right. So the critic score doesn't have that, but there is an audience score for like every single season. So like season 10 has 6
Yeah.
ratings and it's like a 20% kind
That
of
makes
thing,
sense.
which a 20%, man, come on. What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
What
so
are you
it
doing?
looks here there are only 17 overall for the entire series run. It's an 82%.
Yeah, that's why I was hesitant to keep it on there. But sometime,
Yeah,
but
it's
some,
weird.
yeah, it's weird. But I think I fall more with like the Google and the TV.com and the IMDb one seems a little bit more, have a little bit more to them,
Yeah.
but also kind of like a little bit low. I think with like Google being kind of closer to the mark for me. If you look at awards and nominations, again, you have to realize that it's also in the animated category, going up against The Simpsons, going against Family Guy, going against American Dad, like all kind of like in like that same vein. But they do have lots of wins to their names. So it's won an Annie for Outstanding Individual Achievement for Voice Acting by a female performer in an animated television production. Super long name, but that was for Peggy Hill in 2001.
Hooah!
Hooah! Oh yeah! Outstanding writing in an animated television production in 2002, and a voice acting in animation or animated television production with Luann Platter in 2004, and writing in an animated television production in 2004 as well, and also has a few Emmys. One for Outstanding Animated Program in 1999, and then Outstanding Voiceover Performance for Bobby Hill in 2002.
Just disappointed they did not get best cameo from Bobby Hill playing Sailor Moon. That's the only thing I'm
Oh
missing.
my god.
And fun, I guess I'll throw this fun fact in here now.
Yeah.
In Bobby Hill's room, you can see Bart Simpson cameo as a doll on his.
Oh,
shelf.
that's fun. I like that. I was going to say one thing before we move on, circling back to the whole like popularity and all that. It's interesting that King of the Hill ended just as streaming was becoming a viable common thing, as far as like Fox uploading new episodes and whatnot. And I'm wondering, because their early seasons were hindered by like going up against football games and getting, bumped from their spot and whatnot, how much that shaped public opinion on the show if you were, not even guaranteed to see it every week. Whereas now, like, Grey's Anatomy can air, and then Saturday morning you can just pull it up on a computer and watch it anyway, even if you missed it. And so it seems interesting, like where they died out.
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting because apparently, like the DVD sales for home media did really, really bad. But I also think, like you just said, it was streamed on Netflix up until like 2013, basically. So it was on Netflix and then just came back and then came to Hulu a couple of years ago, I think 2018, 2017.
Time out. Are you watching 253 episodes with commercials?
I have Hulu Premium. I don't know what a commercial is.
That's right.
It's cheaper than
hear
my
that,
Netflix
Kate?
subscription because Netflix subscription is going up, and it's so upsetting. So upsetting.
Like
I want to keep my 4K
$17
Ultra.
for Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sorry. I saw like they try to sneak it in there too, and like your subscription's going up. It's like bullshit. I can do without 4K. You can suck my dick. I'm not paying almost $20 for Netflix. Sorry. Oh, thank you. Hard pass.
I'm just, is HBO the only streaming service that doesn't lock 4K behind a paywall?
I don't know. Maybe.
I think so. Like maybe I don't know what Disney does, but that's the only other.
Oh no,
one.
I think Disney might have 4K available. I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
Disney has 4K.
Yeah, it's like.
But
Disney's
yeah,
the only
Netflix
one
charging
I'm
for it. I've never had 4K on Netflix.
Yeah, so the home media didn't do too well, but the show was also broadcast and syndication a bunch from basically starting in 2001. It was on FX for a time. Like Matt mentioned earlier, it had its spot on Adult Swim for a while. Went back to Comedy Central, but now you can watch it on Hulu or other places if you watch
My dad
TV.
used to watch the marathons they do on FX. Like
Yeah.
he'd just turn that on in the morning and keep it on all day.
Yeah, it works out pretty well. And I mean, if you look at like all of the reviews from people like from Times Magazine and things like that, they all kind of say generally the same thing, that it's going to kind of go into our like next but why those. of basically the biggest things on why like the show does so well is that it kind of can do like that bipartisan animation and humor, and it works. So in 2011, a survey conducted by oh, Alex, you
I'm
muted
here.
Alex? Okay, cool. So, a survey in 2011 conducted by the Experian Simmons for Entertainment Weekly found very little confluence between TV shows watched by Democrats and Republicans. Perhaps a symptom of like that cultural divide. So, liberals generally love quirky comedies like Community, Parks and Rec, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, The Mindy Project, while conservatives tend to prefer reality shows and crime dramas, including NCIS, Duck Dynasty, The Bachelor, and Top Gear.
What a
I
spread!
mean,
The spread, man. Think
so
about
they
it.
they got some reach.
They love
Yeah, reach.
propaganda and Duck Dynasty.
And The
The
Bachelor.
Bachelor.
Come on, man. Even when you look at animated shows, it's pretty clear that the majority of them are going to lean left. Even American Dad with Stan Smith's character basically being like a comedic characterization of like a cis conservative white man. They eventually kind of even go away from that later in the show, and he's just kind of like Stan. King of the Hill really kind of bridges that gaps and really subverts expectations of what it's like to be a suburban middle class family
Mhm.
in Texas, and it kind of works for both sides. So viewers on the left can kind of basically laugh at quote unquote hicks who are increasingly out of touch with the modern world, while those on the right can both appreciate and identify with the quote unquote redneck stereotype that
Mhm.
they're so proud to kind of like be a part of, i.e. Duck Dynasty is probably why it's so popular. And then King of the Hill basically can draw those viewers in with these caricatures, and then also use it for really great storytelling moments when you kind of subvert those expectations.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I never saw King of the Hill, and I still don't, as like a conservative show. I
Mhm.
just saw it as a show where like people just learned how not to be shitty people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Like, they started off as bad people who had really conservative views that made them kind of racist a lot. But I also really liked King of the Hill because they show like Peggy makes me so uncomfortable because
Oh,
I
she's
know so many people like her.
yeah.
Like, I work with one where literally anytime he can talk Spanish to me, he will. I hate it. And that's like that happens all the time. But like, I don't know, because I get what you're saying and I see it because it wasn't overtly saying F you conservatives, but
Mhm.
it was kind of like, here's how you talk and like you can make things not so I
Yeah.
don't know. I just I
Well,
don't
it's
does
it's
that
like that
make
whole thing.
sense?
That whole thing on Twitter when people were like, Hank Hill would have voted for Donald Trump, and then everybody lost their minds and like came out
Because he
to
would
defend
not
him.
have.
Exactly, where it's like, I get like it's like we're gonna show like because I mean you were saying earlier they didn't want character growth, but character growth was what made that show great. Like even if it
Yeah.
was just like within the episode, like Hank coming around and learning a lesson by the end of it, and like having that after school special moment, like that was kind of what was fun about that show was seeing that like these characters weren't locked into who they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you even have the episode of like when he finally gets to meet George W. Bush and he shakes his hand and he has like a limp handshake and it like throws him to this like existential crisis on whether or not he's like, we can't have him going to other countries and shaking world leaders' hands with a limp handshake, and kind of like throws him for a loop. Because while they never like overtly say that Hank is or any of them are Republican, I mean they pretty much are.
Yeah.
Except Dale.
So Dale is his own breed. Dale's Dale.
Dale is closest to a libertarian, and even then he's not that.
No. Libertarian
Dale
is
is an
probably a government
anarchist.
conspiracy cooked up to suppress people. In
I
Dale's
saw
eyes.
this entire thread where people were like, Dale would be QAnon and he would be a Trumper. I was like, no. Dale would have been out there with the anti-fascist folks.
Yes.
I was like, I can't tell you what Dale is, but I can tell you what Dale's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theorist, yes, but he's
I can-
more...
I can hear in my head Dale Gribble just saying that's what they want you to think about QAnon.
Yes!
I just want him like throwing pocket sand at in
Yes.
protest. I think that'd be fantastic.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so Alex brought it up a little bit, but of course, like Hank is like one of the main characters. I mean, as the show's focus a lot of the times, and him kind of dealing with like a changing world because he's definitely, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of guy. And he's usually pretty stubborn with some soft prejudices, but again is always kind of like brought back to do like the right thing at the end of the episode. Especially we definitely see that with his relationship with Bobby and his God damn it, Bobby. And that's kind of like can be seen as definitely a reflection of the generation gap, and especially that liberal conservative gap because Bobby's obviously a little bit more free spirited, and not as prone or interested in the things that Hank is interested in, and many of the episodes really do conclude with them kind of learning lessons, not just like Hank learning not how to be a bad person, but sometimes Bobby learning how to be a better person and not kind of the
There's
dorky
actually
kids
some
sometimes. So they have like their back and forth.
There's actually some really touching episodes where they just learn how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's also the episode where Bobby tries to teach about Jesus, and he does it by using magic, which is one of my favorite episodes.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, is he talking about the episode like where he is like
Is it the one with the skater pastor?
I don't remember. I know
no,
he
that's
shows
a
up.
different episode. There's
No,
a
I
skater
think-
pastor
No, that's
one.
the
and then
Jesus is a lot of places he doesn't want to be.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
But he shows up and they're trying to teach him about it, and so he shows up to church to do a magic show, talking about the miracles of Jesus.
It's so good.
Yeah, and there's the other one where he decides he's going to be a wizard, and they're going to make him drink goat blood, and then Hank, the entire episode, tells him that like those dudes are like uber nerds, and then Bobby realizes like, oh wait, you guys are nerds. Like you guys are probably going to die alone, kind of thing. I don't want to be like you. Maybe my dad was right, kind of thing. So
Hank
Yeah.
learning video games is another good one. To be honest,
Where's the button to turn myself in?
Yeah.
and even Peggy, despite her thinking she's Mexican, like Kate mentioned, also consistently calls out Hank sometimes on his things with like, for example, kind of with Bobby first. Bobby constantly question Bobby's interests when they aren't aligned with him, but again, does eventually kind of come around. So Bobby tried his hardest to get his dad or Hank's approval by doing one of his jokes about sports with his ventriloquist dummy. And then after it's destroyed, Hank basically makes an ideal version of it, complete with a Letterman jacket and all. And by the end of the episode, he makes an exact copy and then begins to bond with him, learning more about his interests like while they're watching Iron Chef. So while that stuff is different, they do bridge that gap. And then in terms of like Peggy calling out Hank sometimes, in season 2, the episode Bobby Slam, fantastic episode. Peggy is basically managing the girls' gymnastics team, and when one of the girls wants to join the men's wrestling team, Hank basically says like women can't be in wrestling, and Peggy argues, "Did a woman judge and ruin the Supreme Court? Huh?" And basically kind of like does that kind of thing of being like, "Hey man, like I can do things too." And
Peggy Hill has always been the like looking back, Peggy Hill is a well-meaning white woman who thinks who genuinely has her heart in the right place and knows what she should be doing, and like Peggy Hill is definitely a feminist. Peggy Hill definitely voted for Biden. Peggy Hill has probably never voted for Trump, but Peggy Hill also has some racist stuff she
but
does.
Peggy
Hill's
Hill's
also a
gonna
white
say
woman.
that
Teaching
Peggy
Spanish
Hill
at a high
voted
school
for
in
Mitt Romney, is what
Texas.
you're saying.
Yes, Peggy Hill voted for Mitt Romney. Peggy Hill voted for Mitt Romney in
2012?
2012, and then she voted for for Hillary because come on, she had to in 2016, and then she voted for Biden here. Like that was her
That tracks.
trajectory.
Yep.
And she's also going to like say that people are from the Orient still
Yes.
in 2020.
Well, because that's what it is. Like, and I don't think people realize why the deeper things that King of the Hill show, at least like looking back on it now, and like I think I've watched a few seasons like maybe 2 years ago, is just that like that's the type of person that like I'm used to in Texas. Like that's a Texas Democrat. The person who still says off the cuff racist things, but is also not like, but is also knows what they should be doing to be progressive, but then don't necessarily enact it. That's Peggy Hill.
They're helping him, but they got to say, "Come on, you got to come on this way."
Yeah, and
Peggy Hill says, Peggy Hill No, I'm not going to say it. Never mind. Just keep going.
Okay. So, and even characters who are like the most probably like what someone from like the West Coast thinks about Texas when you think about like what a crazy gun-toting Texan looks like. People might think about Dale as that person, but even Dale has plenty of episodes like where he surprises and like subverts expectations. Because if like for face value, you're like, oh yeah, Dale probably doesn't like gay people, probably, maybe, if you just like, if I just describe Dale to someone who has never watched the show. But he also like has really good moments of him being a great dad, a great husband, and a great son. So there's the one episode where his dad comes back, and his dad comes back into his life after his dad kissed his wife on his wedding night. And it turns out that his dad only kissed his wife because he didn't want Dale to know he was gay. And then we spend the whole episode thinking that Dale won't accept his dad when he finds out the truth about him being gay. But when he finds out like the truth, Dale is convinced that his dad's like a government agent and a spy sent to like spy on him. And when his dad consistently says like, no, it's not that. I'm gay. And Dale was like, well, I wish that was true because that would be better, or something to that effect. So it was, he had no problem
Dale
with
is
his
low key the most accepting person on this entire series.
Yeah, so he definitely had no problem with him being gay, but as soon as he thought he was a government agent, it was all over from there. Another episode, Dale is basically tempted into committing adultery with this woman who is like literally into the same kind of pest control, same kind of interest and things like that, and he ends up staying faithful even after she like has like this romantic dinner for him, and then he goes home and he's like, and his wife the whole time thinks that he's going to do it, he's going to cheat on him because she had already cheated on him with
For the
John
entire
Redcorn.
series.
For the entire series.
And then he gets home and is like, she thought she was gonna cheat. She wanted me to cheat, and I was like, nope. And then like he just sits down on the couch and they watch TV together. Very, very wholesome moment. Another episode when his wife is going through some body dysmorphia. Dale plans to make her feel better by raising funds for plastic surgery by literally suing his favorite tobacco company. And if you know Dale, there's nothing he loves more than guns and his wife than cigarettes. So he would literally sue his favorite tobacco company to make his wife happy.
So question, what is Boomhauer? Because Boomhauer is probably the person we know the least about.
Boomhauer to me would
Did
be the
Boomhauer
only
not
person.
vote?
I think Boomhauer would be the only one that might have voted the other way.
What define the other way?
Or I think Boomhauer might be the only one that probably voted for Trump, but he didn't say anything to anybody.
I could see that, actually.
No, it was
Boomhauer is the person who says
voting for
don't.
Trump.
Well, no, but Cotton told everybody he voted for Trump. That's the difference. Cotton has a Trump flag on his truck. That's Cotton. Boomhauer is the person who says we're just not going to talk politics at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we basically don't even know his name is Jeff until like the end of like the series.
Yeah, when you said Jeff Boomhauer earlier, I was like, oh yeah, that's
that's like one of the fun facts. His name is actually Jeff, and we don't really find that out. It's like, later. Even the episode where his brother comes, like they don't even call him by his first name, even in that episode.
So that's the crazy thing, like the conspiracy theory thing, which is kind of like we can't talk about conspiracy theory anymore, but like the way it is for the government now, and like Dale. Because obviously, I used to work out in the desert, met a lot of weird people, and it's funny because there's a guy who was out there, and he was like, "Hey man, I got these giant dinosaur fossils out in my front yard, these giant fossil trees," and we're like, "Oh my gosh, that's great." But then he'd be like, "Also, the FBI put a chip in my head, and they've been watching me ever since I got out," and we were just like, "So do you have fossils or do you not?" And it was 50-50 because it was like I said, it was like. That part is, he did have giant fossils in a tree or in the front yard, but we still don't know about the FBI chip.
Pocket sand.
I just like Alex's face right now because he doesn't know what to say.
I'm just sorry. I know I'm just thinking about that and how insane that is.
Yeah. And then we haven't even really talked about Khan yet and Khan's family, but race is like obviously discussed pretty heavily at times, especially when you think about Khan and his family. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce their last name because I'm just not going. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sufanusophones?
But it's like more than that.
Sufanusophones?
There's an extra.
Susanufus
Sufanusophones.
I thought they said it differently.
Sufanusophones. I'm reading it off of the notes.
Sufanusophones. Connie.
Sufanufus phone.
I tell you what.
No, wait, what's the wife's name?
Min.
Min, yeah.
Con, Min, Connie, and Doggy,
Yeah, Doggy,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole like racist interaction that Hank has in the episode with them.
Yeah, so basically they're Laotian Americans, and none of our main characters really understand that. So they continually call at the very beginning when they first meet them, Korean or Chinese or Japanese.
Yep.
And Khan also like has his own misconceptions of them being rednecks because he literally calls them rednecks literally.
I don't blame Khan for
Constantly.
any of that.
But it's interesting because like both of them definitely obviously defy those stereotypes. Khan is a hardworking businessman who moved from Arlen from Anaheim. Like Hank, he built himself up to where he is today. He's arrogant, materialistic, but it's also clear that those qualities come from wanting the best for his family. And then later on, we find out that Khan's bipolar, which kind of I literally watched the episode last night where Khan like decides he's going to become a redneck too, and basically like almost gets evicted from his house and everything like that. Like that's a crazy episode.
That sounds insane.
But however, like Hank and and we've talked about this before, but like Hank and the rest of them really aren't really all that redneck, right? All of them have jobs.
No.
They have houses.
Bill is redneck.
Bill's not red. He's just a sad old man.
Bill's just sad.
No,
He's just a
no.
sad.
Bill Dotrieve.
Bill Dotrieve is what happens when we
no.
don't take care of veterans. That's Bill Dotrieve. And his wife died. Like his wife left him. He's a sad old. He gets around with Khan's
You
mom.
can be sad and still be a redneck.
He gets around
That's
with
true.
Khan's mom, and only Khan messes that up for him. He was real happy when Khan's mom was there. Two of them have.
I do want to.
families.
I was going to circle back. One of my favorite things with Khan, I think, is in that first episode, and I think we've talked about this before, where Hank asks him like, "Are you Chinese or Japanese?" And then Cotton walks up, looks at him, and goes, "He's Laotian," and then leaves. And then Hank's like, "So are you Chinese or Japanese?" And like that moment encapsulated so much about how people talk about. Like inappropriately talk about race and don't understand anything, but like just Cotton being the one to walk in and be like, "No, he's Laotian," and then leave.
Cotton, who has a whole host of his own issues with.
Right? Yeah, his own racism and.
Yeah, but despite those differences, Khan and Hank really do have really good episodes where they learn to coexist. They learn more about each other's culture, and by the end, they do kind of come to respect each other and lean on each other. The person who brings Khan out of like that redneck lifestyle and almost losing his house is Hank. Hank does help him through that. I mean, there's plenty of other examples of like this show kind of subverting expectations of what it's like to be, Texas redneck and things like that. But those are just some of like the biggest examples I could think of. If you guys have any more,
my biggest thing would probably be, which we kind of already touched on, was Dale, because everybody thinks he's probably the worst, but he ends up being probably the most accepting of everything and everybody except the government.
Yes.
I also think too, like the idea of like what people in Texas look like I would say like the majority of folks are just Hank Hill. Like that's pretty much like of what I've like come into contact with, at least living in cities. But like so in that way, I think that one of the reasons I think why people from Texas don't think that King of the Hill is accurate is because there isn't a lot of the stereotypes from the non-Texan lens, because the way that they showcase different characters in King of the Hill is very specific to like how we see people around us living here. And I think like that type of nuance is what makes King of the Hill special and makes it very different. And I think why like I've at least met some people who like, well, that's nothing, that can't be anything like Texas. Like, no, that's pretty much like Texas. We're not all one way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of goes into kind of the other reason why this show works so well is that a lot of it's just like mundane, everyday things, and they throw it into animation. And we've talked a whole bunch about how sitcoms can just work just because they cover mundane stuff, and that's like great just to watch. Seinfeld being obviously the biggest example of that. There's some situations in Always Sunny that we talked about, but in animation that doesn't really operate that way, especially the ones that we've talked about. The Simpsons gets more and more outlandish and packed with like celebrity cameos. Family Guy basically just goes to like, what cutaway gag or musical number can we do this time around?
Drives me so bad that they do
Yeah, I
that
know.
now all the time.
It's. I
Can we
can't
play a
sometimes
whole
I can't-
Conway Twitty song?
God,
gosh.
get out of here.
Like, I didn't mind it at first, but then when it came like half the episode, it was like, I'm
Yeah,
done.
However, King of the Hill basically just stays rooted in that reality driven by character and social situations. So many of like some of the funniest episodes, in my opinion, are some of the ones where they're just doing everyday thing, but are still getting pushed by those character moments. So we kind of talked this about already, but like there was that the parallels of polling where they have the whole thing with getting your votes in on November 6th, and at the very end they do have like a PSA about voting. There season 4, aisle 8A, Connie is staying with the Hills and ends up experiencing her first period. And Hank, who is clearly not the person to deal with that, has to take care of it. So you have to watch like this very prototypical cisgendered white man who like doesn't even like to talk about the sex in his neurourethra. Has to like deal with that situation, and it's great because it has really great
That
character
episode
moments.
hit so freaking hard because the first time my dad had to go buy pads, my dad added pads and tampons for the household. It was very similar.
Yeah, see, so it works out. So season 2, Hank's Dirty Laundry, after being denied a store credit card purchased from a dryer from the Megalomart, which is basically like their Walmart. It's revealed that the reason Hank has a low credit score is thanks to an unreturned rental from a local video store, and it turns out that it was an adult film. And despite Peggy's insistence, they just pay the fine and get on with their lives. However, Hank is like desperate to prove his innocence and fight the system, and like goes on this whole basically like, I didn't rent that pornographic film type thing. And that's something I can see people doing who are very stubborn when things are wronged in a
Matt.
way that, I was gonna say it, but
Matt.
I could see Matt doing this.
Because Matt has done that before, where it's been like, well, let's just pay this thing and be done with. He's like, no, because we shouldn't have to pay this.
I will save my $11 if I don't have to pay that damn $11.
Yeah, see?
I fought the
I get
rental
it.
company. I'm fighting EA right now because they banned my Apex account and I haven't even played the game in 3 years.
Oh, that's
yeah,
insane.
like realistically, Matt doesn't need his Apex account back because he doesn't play the game, but he's fighting them.
I get it.
Principle.
Yeah, so even into season 11, like when we're talking about like the the down seasons of King of the Hill, Grand Theft Arlen, when Hank finds out that Bobby's PE class has been replaced with computer games and been renamed Virtual PE, he goes into school to complain, but then after playing the game for some time, he basically becomes addicted. And then on the other flip side, Bobby basically finds joy in healthy exercise, which is something I could see happening for sure. Very like mundane kind of way to do your episode, but great when Hank Hill is playing video games.
So I do, obviously I mentioned that one, but I do want to bring out the Bobby taking karate lessons. It's still the best meme in the internet, and still the best one ever.
It's the
that's
oh, is that the next one? Oh
yes.
Shit! I thought that.
No, you're fine. No, you're good.
Yeah, look at you, Matt.
I didn't know
read
that
the
was
first
the
part.
episode
I
title.
missed it. I didn't
Read
see that
the
one.
notes.
Oh, he said.
Read the notes,
my bad.
Matt.
He said boxing class. So I missed it. My bad.
Read the notes.
I was looking for karate, not boxing.
But guys,
the
I
notes.
didn't
But
know that
it
episode
was
had
women's
that
self-defense
title.
class.
Well, that's why I didn't think it was boxing class. Anyway,
Read the notes,
my
Matt.
bad. That was my bad.
It's okay.
I read part of it, but I skimmed too fast.
Yeah. So even like with those kind of like more mundane episodes, even when they do get like a little bit out of the ordinary in the terms of like King of the Hill, they still don't feel that out of touch or like that out of the sense of reality. So season 6,
Like when Luann
Bobby
joins a cult.
Oh, gosh.
when Luann joins a cult.
So I'm not
and
gonna lie.
has
Out of
to
all the
save
characters,
her.
I do not like Luann at all.
I
can't
love
stand
You
Luann
her.
would dislike her
she's
more
the-
than Peggy?
Luann
Yeah.
is the person from high school that is now like selling Herbalife and Cutco knives. That's who Luann is.
And they're telling me
we all
that,
know her.
that we need to learn to grow up and learn how to be an adult.
Yes.
That's a big part of her character. Yeah. But
Anyway,
season
sorry,
6,
Adrian.
Bobby goes nuts because again, this is also one of my favorite episodes and something I quote literally daily whenever I have to like grab Stefani's purse or anything. Because after being bullied at a slumber party, Hank decides that Bobby should learn how to defend himself, and he enlists in him to start taking a boxing class. However, when the boxing class is full, Bobby decides to enroll in a women's self-defense class and learns the technique of kicking people in the testicles and spends
That's my purse. I don't know
I
you.
don't know you. And then ends
And
up literally just
the
kicking people in
voice
the
of Bobby is so perfect for that line. Just so crackly and
Still the best meme on the entire internet, or the GIF. I don't care.
yeah, including end up kicking Hank in the testicles as well. And
My
then,
dad does in fact say that's my purse. I don't know you.
Yeah.
Around the house.
yeah, it's a great line, and I also love it at the very end when Peggy decides to fight Bobby, and then he tries to kick her in the testicles.
That is one
and
of
she's
the-
just like, nope. It's great. It's great.
It's just like
Oh,
that
yeah.
episode is just so good on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Also, just the joy of a parent putting their kid in their place.
Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah.
Season 5, ho yeah. Hank befriends Tammy at Strickland Propane and invites her to stay with his family when she's struggling. And like throughout the episode, because Hank is so oblivious, he basically they find out
adorable.
that Tammy's a prostitute, and Hank
He's the
accidentally
Mac
becomes
Daddy.
her pimp with
He's
the hat
the
and
Mac
all.
Daddy.
The hat is my favorite part.
Then Returning Japanese, the 2-part episode where Hank's father, Cotton Hill, who we mentioned a bunch so far, he's a World War II veteran, and he goes to Japan to apologize to the wife of a Japanese soldier he killed. As it turns out, Cotton had accidentally fallen in love with the widow during the war and ultimately impregnated her. The Japanese Hank is basically introduced and then literally never referenced again in the series, which happens like quite a lot. Like sometimes they'll introduce a character and they don't bring it back, which is kind of annoying, but I think that's more because like Judge and Daniels kind of like go away from the series. But basically his half brother is basically literally Hank, but he's into robotics and robotic accessories. It's a pretty interesting episode. Problematic,
Guys,
but like
I looked
not...
up I looked up Japanese Hank Hill, and there are pictures of this, but there's also several links to videos where people have just photoshopped Hank into Yu Yu Hakusho.
I need that in my life. I need that in my life. I need that so
I
much.
don't understand this.
Also, underrated note of this entire 2-part episode is what's his face? Bobby falling in love with a girl at the DDR machine.
Yeah, it's such a sad moment. And then Cotton being like, "No, go say goodbye to the woman you love because you might not get the chance," kind of thing. So even Cotton has his redeemable attributes because he like literally goes to Japan to like burn it down by the almost by the end of that episode. So it's
He also has very, very few redeemable.
yeah, very
attributes.
few.
Again, Cotton voted for Trump and was very
Yep.
loud about it.
Definitely. And then just one last one to mention here. The Transnational Amusements presents Peggy's Magic Sex Feet. And this is the episode where Peggy, who is trying to like come to terms with her size 16 feet, thinks she's
Mhm.
basically participating in videos about women with big feet positivity, but she's actually getting paid to be on a foot fetish website, which
I remember
could
this
definitely
episode.
happen. It's hilarious and great.
So
And
that's
she
the
like
thing,
doesn't
with-
even question it at first. It's like, yeah, step on these eggs. And like
Yes.
That's the thing. Like you see this because you see all these. You wonder like this. No people would ever fall for half this stuff, and you're like, yes, they would. Yes, they
Yeah.
would.
Yes.
Peggy
they
would.
I
Peggy
also
would.
think one of my favorite episodes is when she goes to the hotel for the Boggle Championship or whatever.
Yeah.
mhm.
That one's
Or the
also
episode
very
where she thinks
good.
she's a genius because she took a test online. And it
Yes.
turns out
Oh,
Luann takes the same
yeah.
test
Yes.
and is like a
Yep.
certified genius. Yeah, that's a great episode
No,
too.
I think I think that has like my favorite line in Still, where she's like, "What if I'm average?"
And then just like ultimately, like can't really think of any other animated shows who do mundane things like that, let alone like even attempt to make it their stick. Basically,
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
the last over 13 years, and it works. Ultimately, being kind of one of the reasons why it's so easy to kind of go back and rewatch the show because there's no outlandish, no cutaways, no
Mhm.
you know who's going to be the celebrity this week that comes out kind of thing. Which it does have
Yeah.
some celebrities, but definitely not the main point of the show.
And they're
It
Texan
also,
celebrities.
like, and it's also like too, like I think one of the things that a lot of adult animation falls into is like, oh yeah, that was real problematic. That didn't age well. And I think that like King of the Hill has that, but it does it in a different way because it's showcasing that these are how people are in Texas.
Yeah.
And it it acknowledges those things, and it's kind of like when we've talked about Archer or something like that. Like, it acknowledges that this is actually a problem, which makes it really hold up extremely well, because people haven't changed that much since this show was basing characters off of them.
Yeah, I think it's really one of the big reasons why it's gotten a lot of popularity back over the last 2 years since it's been on Hulu because of that. And I think Alex mentioned at the beginning of at the top of the episode, it kind of has that after school special kind of feel at the end. So even when you're doing things that probably wouldn't age very well, they just don't like leave it up in the air. You know, they get better from it by the end.
Also, I know I mentioned at the top of the show, but them making Bobby smoke that many cigarettes so that he got sick and threw up and never smoked again, that's something my mom would have done.
It's what I loved about that too is that like the whole like I'm gonna make you smoke a whole pack, and like that's a thing that people reference or talk about, and this was maybe the first time I saw a show that was like, no, we're gonna show you how much is in a pack and we're in a carton, and like we're gonna show you what it does to this poor child.
Because the entire show is just him sitting at that table and getting increasingly sicker as he smokes.
It's
because I think they do like a one-off thing in Family Guy with Peter and Chris, but definitely doesn't work nearly as well as this does because it's like the center of the episode.
It just feels real, man.
Yeah.
Like King of the Hill just feels real.
And that's the thing, like even the humor at that point becomes like more real life humor. Like, yes, there are punchlines and, you know, whatever, but, and, you know, dramatic, like use of like camera and cutting to make things funny. But because they can't do cutaways, they can't do flashbacks, they can't do song and dance numbers. Like it's a much more grounded type of joke telling.
But also,
I also do. Oh, go ahead.
but also, I know parents who made their child smoke a pack of cigarettes when they thought they wanted to smoke, and they all got sick.
You know,
also,
people who take women's self-defense classes and kick people in the nuts.
That
Because I want to see that.
Out of all the stuff
so bad.
the sad part is out of all the stuff we talked about, probably the only one I don't have an example for. I can think of.
I just want to give Tank Hill's tiny booty a shout out.
Thought you were gonna say urethra.
No, that's narrow, not tiny.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, it's wearing butt pads.
Yeah, I forgot about the whole joke that Hank just doesn't have a butt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All great stuff. I do have some fun facts to run through that I couldn't really fit anywhere else.
What? I do have a question though. Like, because since you're rewatching it, there's not that many like Mexicans in the series for being a Texas show.
Yeah, but it is it's in Richmond, and I don't know if you've ever been to Richmond. There's not that many Mexicans there either.
That's fair.
Yeah, like this is like outside of, if this was like outside of Houston or outside of Austin or outside of like San Antonio thing, I would like be much more upset about it. But this is also Dallas.
Yeah, it's
like,
outside of Dallas.
Suburb of Dallas.
Oh, I'm not upset about it. I don't care. This was like
they do go to Mexico though. Peggy.
They do. Also, this, like, I'm not gonna lie, this was like a window into white people for me, if I'm honest.
I mean, it fits.
That's what it was.
There's also that episode where Peggy goes with the action star guy to go teach his kids, and she thinks that he's like coming on to him.
I love it so much.
So there's stuff some places, but she's also like, her Spanish is bad, and it's hilarious.
It's really bad.
But she tries. That's all that matters, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to tell them?
God, again, I work with somebody like her. It's awful.
The hard H on Hablo in the promotional, like, that they tried to pitch the show with was like, that's Peggy Hill, like, speaking Spanish, saying she's a Spanish speaker, and then saying Hablo.
Exactly. They nail it. So, for some fun facts to wrap us up and get us out of here, there actually was a video game based on the series that was released in November 13th of 2000 for the PC, and the player basically goes on a hunting trip with Hank and the gang, where the player must hunt for various animals. As it would probably come to surprise to nobody, the game received mixed to negative reviews. And I didn't know this was a thing.
I don't know what I would want from a King of the Hill game, but it wouldn't be a hunting trip.
Yeah, me either.
A visual novel?
I thought we were going to do it.
I will play a King of the Hill visual novel.
I was going to play like an Overcooked game where he's just grilling and propaning. And you got to like keep...
So
on a phone,
guys,
I would play that.
Are you propane or charcoal?
I'm propane when I'm lazy.
Yeah, that's about how it says. Like, charcoal's great, but propane is super easy.
I've never. Well, so that was the thing, and I never understood this. I never understood this. He was like, "Well, you could just taste the charcoal." It's like, yeah, but like my grandpa cooked with charcoal and like mesquite wood. You're supposed to taste it.
Yeah,
So I've
that was
never
mine.
understood the superiority of propane.
The
that's pushed in
superior
the
is you
show.
turn a knob and then it just lights up and you're done.
No, not to Hank Hill. To Hank Hill, it's because you taste the meat,
Meat,
and
not
the grill.
the heat.
That's
Yeah, meat.
Well, I mean, you don't taste the wood. I guess.
I'm with Kate. Like, I grew up with like when we like did any grilling, it was over charcoal. It was never over propane. I remember when my brother finished college, moved out, and he got a propane grill from his in-laws, and I was like, I don't like this. Like, I get that it's easier and that it's whatever, but I was just like, this isn't barbecuing, this isn't grilling, this isn't like how we grew up.
So that's the
Well,
funny thing.
why,
I was gonna say,
that's why we got a grill that has both. Yeah, one side's charcoal, one side's propane.
Oh, that's
right
not a bad
now we
idea,
have
actually.
Smart.
because we have a charcoal grill right now, or what you want to call a charcoal.
that thing is barely a grill.
barely a grill. And the funny thing is,
It's a
Kate,
shopping
much
cart
as-
on its side.
It's a
pretty
tiny
much.
baby.
Where's the thing took forever to put together. Anyway, the point matters. As much as it's like Kate says all this, I guarantee if we got a propane grill, Kate would love it because I've seen Kate sit out there trying to get that grill to go, where she used like an entire roll of paper towels just to get that thing lighted. And I was
It was really cold outside, and I forgot that like is gonna make it harder.
propane. You just turn the knob and just go click, and it's done.
Yeah, I mean, if I had my choice, I think wood because I like the taste of wood more than I like the taste of charcoal.
I do
but,
too. That's
yeah.
what
Yeah.
I've missed.
So that's the real answer here. Wood, it's wood over,
Wood is-
over
It's
charcoal.
wood.
Get some real
Wood's
mesquite.
better.
Mesquite, some
Yep.
applewood. Yeah. So
I like applewood, but mesquite's good.
I like applewood. It's like a little.
For a second, you all agreed on something, and it
Yeah.
was nice.
I mean, I just like wood overall.
No, I do like
Uh,
wood overall. I just don't like applewood.
What about propane wood? No, I'm just kidding. Moving on from there, the theme song is literally titled Yahoo and Triangles. Because if you know the theme song, that's
Perfect.
literally all it is. The Luann platter is actually named after an actual combo at Luby's.
Just
Yes.
terrible,
Called
by
a-
the way.
Luann
Luby's
platter.
is not bad.
Luby's is terrible.
No.
We used to call that loogies growing up.
No, I don't care. That was fine dining for our poor asses. We went to the one in Central Park Mall because it had a little cart lady that would walk around and fill your tea, and it was like that was my dad got paid meals. So you shut your mouth.
I'd rather eat a
Matt.
Furs than a Luby's.
You shut your mouth.
Oh, yeah,
I have no
rather
idea what any of
prefer
these
to-
restaurants are.
Luby's is
Oh wait,
fine.
yeah. Luby. Do you want to describe Luby's, Kate, for the non-people who?
Luby's is just a cafeteria style dining establishment that to baby Kate was like amazing and expensive and really is not.
It's
But the people
That's
who
it,
work
you
there are
just-
really nice. They're typically, older
They have
ladies.
amazing chocolate cream pie. So essentially
Okay.
you go up, you say what you want, they put it on the plate, and you like get stuff at each section. It's like a cafeteria.
And it
I don't
tastes
know that I've
bad-
ever been
bad
to a
as hell.
restaurant
It
like
does
that.
not, Matt.
It's terrible.
Their chicken fried chicken's good.
It's terrible. As Adrian said, I'd rather eat Furs.
Yeah, I'd rather
That
eat
was the
first.
last place I ever ate with my grandpa.
But I think aren't
so I will
aren't both
punch
of those
him.
things going out of business? Like, aren't they?
I think
like,
they're pretty much
Yes,
both out
they
of
are.
business at the
They're-
point.
they're
I just brought up
both
Furs
out.
because it's comparable. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
Their models were people interacting over food. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like sweet
Yeah,
tomato.
so sorry. Sorry, not Texas people. I didn't realize that Luby's was a Texas
We always
thing.
ate that on
We had one
traveling.
in our
We
mall.
always ate that. We always ate those on traveling for games. It was the easiest way to
I
feed teams.
always knew if I knew how we were doing financially if I could get a piece of pie.
Mm.
Oh, fun fact: Luby's original location, 1947, in San Antonio, Texas.
Gross.
Yep.
Loogies.
No, Matt.
Loogies. That's pretty funny, actually.
No. Go back to not agreeing with each other, please.
Loogies. Oh no. I'm gonna get hit. I'm gonna get smacked across the head because Stefani loves Lubies and she wants us to go every time. And I'm gonna be like, ugh, no, Lubies, gross. She's gonna be so upset. I can't wait. So another fun fact: in 1998, Fox actually tricked fans into believing that the show was moving from Arlen to LA, After the season 2 finale, Propane Boom, Fox launched a promo campaign that promised to see the Hills move to Hollywood, and even release a press statement saying that they were in discussions with Judge and Daniels to change the setting of the series. The network claimed that they received hundreds and hundreds of emails and phone calls from concerned fans following the ruse. In fact, it was all Fox's way of promoting the show's move from Sunday to Tuesday night, which lasted one season before big rating decline moved it back to its original calendar. And there's a whole YouTube clip that we will include in the show notes.
So Propane Boom, I think, was the very last episode I watched as like on live.
Okay.
I watched everything like, you know, as it came out in the 90s, I guess, till that episode, and then never again.
Yeah, the promotion is pretty funny. It's basically like Hank Hill, like it's like a news thing, and then like they cut to Hank Hill, who's like in a chair, and he's like, "Oh, I grew up in Texas. I'll die in Texas. I'll come back to life and live in Texas some more." Like it's just a ridiculous thing.
I like that.
But it works out pretty well.
So you
You
just
talked
told
about
everybody
Boomhammer.
like we're doing Beverly Hillbillies, but
Yes,
with the hills,
basically.
and then we're like, psych,
Yes.
no, we're not.
Yeah, and they have like a TV executive who's like, we're not saying that that he didn't die in the fire, but if he doesn't come on, we might just say that he died in the fire and he's going to be written out of the show, kind of thing.
Huh.
Very, very serious. Also, don't know how you don't think that like that's like satire. But they
Right.
literally had Hank Hill interview.
I was only like
With the
10,
news
man.
station.
I didn't know what was going on. All I saw was everybody die in a fire, and I thought the show was over, and then they were going to LA, and then we knew if they didn't make it, they were all dead, and I was like, I'm only 10, I can't handle this right now.
We've talked about Boomhauer a few times, but Boomhauer's whole like character and the way he speaks is basically based off of a voicemail. A man upset about Beavis and Butthead left Judge a voicemail that he had to replay multiple times in order to understand what he was saying. So Judge basically took that and like made that Boomhauer's like voice in the show.
Boomhauer's voice reminds me of the Cajun guy from The Waterboy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And,
I've also definitely heard people talk like that.
well,
Yes.
of course. And then last, but why the show's first and last lines of the series are Hank and his buddies saying their trademark, "Yep,
Yep.
Which is
Yep.
actually a very big trademark for a lot of families
Yep.
in Texas.
yep,
Yep.
mhm,
I know my family said it a lot growing up, of just, yep.
yep."
Your
Yep.
family says it when we're saying goodbye to them. It's very weird.
You know why, right?
Why?
Oh, that's how my family says I love you, goodbye.
Oh.
That's why they always say yep.
It's
That's
goodbye
Yeah.
in Texas.
This is an
they
adorable.
literally, that's why when
revelation.
you're leaving, you're like, yep, and you just leave. You don't say I love you or anything else. That's all you said, and you leave.
Well,
that's-
I'm brown.
But that's why they say it like that.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
My family has like a 2-hour leaving ritual where you have to go say goodbye to everybody and then you say goodbye to the people you
We
forgot.
even
and then you
condensed
get
down
stuck
all
in
the
a
words. We
conversation.
condensed all the time and word down to one word and leave. You never picked it up?
No,
Oh, okay.
Matt. Do I look like I would know that?
I don't know. You apparently knew that they always said it when we were leaving, so I assumed.
They did, but I just thought that they were being like rushy white people.
But yes, Kate, that is why my family always ends the show with.
I didn't know that. I just thought they were trying to get us to go.
I mean, they are, but that's obviously why. How?
Yeah, but that's all I got on King of the Hill. I think at the end of the day here, like if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Like if you,
Mhm.
it's one of those shows. Throw it on the background, and I guarantee you'll have some laughs. You'll get a sense of kind of like what we're talking about, and it might become, maybe one of your favorite adult animations. Final thoughts.
I'll go.
With Matt.
So I'll go. Final thoughts. I think this show, obviously, I don't think it has in my top 3 Pantheon, but I also watch adult animation, have a very strict what I'm looking for. This one's a little too wholesome for my taste sometimes. But no, it's a great animation that I do enjoy, and I will say, as the older I've gotten, the more I have enjoyed King of the Hill. I know, like I said, because I mentioned earlier, like the show had this whole thing when I was like 10. Like I didn't get all this stuff, and then as you get older, especially being in Texas for as long as I have been, you start to see a person you've met that like every single character on this show. And it is, I guess, I know people get mad about it, like I guess like the stereotypical stuff, but it's kind of like I just don't ever care, just because I'm like I've met these people, and so that's why I've always enjoyed this show. And like I said, it's gotten better as the older I've gotten and the more people I've met and seen and everything else. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely fair, and it also makes sense, right? Because your adult animation is like a little bit darker, which I enjoy too. So I can definitely, I guess that. I mean, I couldn't like conceptualize like why isn't it a part of your thing? But I mean, you did the Archer episode.
I was like, I
and
have Archer.
You did the Archer or BoJack Horseman.
I was like, I didn't go. I have a lot of animation, but it's definitely not probably what people think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that your final thoughts? Is it just yep? Because if it is, that's fantastic. That works. Alex.
Yeah, I feel like for me, just like King of the Hill matters, because it's not New York. It's not, a major city. It's not a demographic that gets plastered all over television. In that it's just like, we're going to show suburban Texas. We're going to show, people who lean conservative. We're going to show, people who are still learning and bettering themselves. Like it's a show that matters because it's quality. It's grounded. It's something that we don't always see everywhere. I mean, like even something like Community, which was like, oh, it's small townish, maybe, I don't know. It's still Colorado. Like, I think that what makes King of the Hill matter to me is just like what it's trying to showcase and the job that it does doing it. I don't know that anybody like really watches King of the Hill and is like, I feel so seen. This changes how I value myself. Maybe they do. I'm not going to knock them for it. But like it's just a show that like it gives you something different, whether you're from Texas and enjoy seeing like Texas like poked fun out on TV, or if you're not from Texas and just like wanted to see something that isn't the norm. Like something that I value about it is that it gets political. It has characters who learn. It's a setting that most people are not going to see all over the place. Like it's a good show. And yeah.
Oh, I hate
Okay, also, I do have to come back in there because yep wasn't enough. All I'm thinking of is 911 Lone Star, which is awful in that it's set in a firehouse in Austin and they keep making jokes about how the people from New York are from the big city. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You're in Austin.
Yeah. That's like one of 3
And-
cities in Texas people can name.
it just bugs me. And the entire time I was watching it, it made me more appreciative of King of the Hill. Because there's a specific scene where what is his name? Rob Lowe asks, "What's barbacoa?" And they say, "It's steak you put in the ground." And I was like, no. And most white people in Texas would know the answer to that. Okay, I'm done. Sorry. King of the Hill, because representation matters for
So
Texas.
all I mean is don't watch Lone Star. Lone Star is never going to get an episode on But Why Though.
No, or get really drunk and do it. One of the two things. I'm done now.
Well, I'm also done, so you can take us out. I think we're good.
So, as always, thank you so much for coming on the show, Alex.
Always a pleasure.
Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at MostAlwaysAlex, Friday.com for genre and horror news and reviews, and then Game Boys Co-op Game Boys is a podcast I do about video games and co-op gaming specifically, or at least multiplayer. And we just did our 2020 awards, and our next episode I think is what we want to see in 2021.
Dope. And if you want to support us a little bit more, head on over to patreon.com/butwhythoughpc. We're revamping it. We have a lot more of extra and behind the scenes content over there. So head on over there and support us for as little as $1 a month. It really, really helps us keep the show going and improve our quality. And you can find us on social media at butwhythoughpc on literally everything. And you can find me on Twitter at ohmymythrandir. Adrian?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Superruiz93, SUPERRUIZ 93.
Matt?
Going to live in the forest.